Hello and welcome back. Today we're reacting to some more Oversimplified. Today we have the Football War, MiniWars number 2. The Football War, is this really a war over football? Or is it a war using football? I don't know. I can't wait to find out though. Let's dive right in.
Quick, you have 2 seconds to name these two countries.
No idea.
You're wrong, unless you got it right. Then good job. They are, of course, Honduras and El Salvador. One thing these two countries have
Oh, I didn't mean to do that.
in common is being fanatic about football.
I had no
Or if you're
idea.
a freedom-loving patriot, soccer. But do they love it so much they would go
Wait.
about football? Or if you're a freedom-loving patriot, soccer.
He's huge. Holding a flag and eating a cheeseburger. You know, can confirm as an American that's pretty accurate. God, I wish I just had a cheeseburger here that I could just pull out, but I don't. I'm a vegetarian.
But do they love it so much they would go to war over it? You bet they would.
Really?
That is no bueno.
Wow. How? How does that
If you
happen?
look at these two countries, you might notice one major difference, and that is that this one is a lot bigger than this one.
Yes.
However, this one had a larger population than this one.
Really?
They were mostly of farmers, and there wasn't enough land for them to live and work on. So they started moving from El Salvador to Honduras in search of land. And by the 1960s, a huge number of illegal immigrants had crossed over the border from El Salvador. Meanwhile, in Honduras, it's 1963, and this guy has just staged a military coup to prevent the rise of communism, and is now the military leader of the country. He immediately began harassing the peasants' unions and other left-wing groups, but he's a little insecure about the legitimacy of his leadership. So
Okay.
he holds an election and wins, but then the opposing party says, hey man, that election was clearly corrupt and fraudulent, and also you've been bribed by the rich American banana companies who are taking all of our bananas tax-free, and now our economy is in ruins.
Wait, is this where corporate America, the banana companies, basically influenced the politics of another country because they wanted to get their bananas cheaper? I've heard about that.
And everyone started to get mad at him. Now, if you ever find yourself the barely legitimate military leader of a corrupt Central American country, and you start getting into hot water,
As one does from time to time. We've all been there, right?
here's a bit of advice that has been tried and tested throughout the centuries. Blame something else.
Yes.
So he blamed the Salvadoran immigrants for stealing all the land and all the jobs and ruining Honduras. The immigrants found themselves under attack by the hostile locals, egged on by the rich American banana companies who wanted all the bananas to themselves. The Honduran government began evicting Salvadoran immigrants.
We do love our bananas. I can confirm that. We do love our bananas.
Who had been living on the land for generations and started sending them back to El Salvador. The Salvadoran elite were furious and protested, citing moral reasons, but in reality, they were just getting a little too crowded. So tensions were about as high as they could be, but then
they got higher.
it's the 1970 World Cup qualifiers, and both countries finished top of their qualifying tables, so it was now time for them to play against each other in a series of matches. The first match took place in Honduras. The night before the game, Hondurans gathered outside the Salvadoran team's hotel, making noise and taunting them. The next day, Honduras defeated the exhausted Salvadorans with a late 90th minute goal.
That's
After the match,
a
a young
dick
Salvadoran
move.
fan, unable to bear her country's defeat, shot herself.
Oh.
Disturbingly, the Salvadoran government
If you need help, please call a hotline. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, okay? But that aside, how can you care so much about sports? Like, how can sports influence you that much? I'm not a sports guy. I really am not at all. But I just don't understand how someone could be that invested into sports. That's crazy.
glorified the incident and made her into a national hero. And at the next game, fans brought pictures of her to the stadium. Emotions were running high as the next match took place in El Salvador, and this time the tables were turned. The Hondurans had to endure a sleepless night in their hotel, and the next day, before the match started, instead of the Honduran flag, the Salvadorans raised a dirty rag. So great job at reducing tensions.
So, didn't you just kind of surrender, raising a white flag? I realize it probably wasn't white and all that. That's really insulting. People take their flag seriously.
El Salvador won decisively over the exhausted Hondurans, while spectators battled in the stands. Team Honduras fled home in a bulletproof bus with rocks being thrown at them, and the Honduran coach reportedly told his players that they were lucky they lost.
They had to go in a bulletproof bus? Soccer's that serious in this part of the world? Wow.
With rocks being thrown at them, and the Honduran coach reportedly told his players that they were lucky they lost. In response to the defeat, Hondurans began terrorizing the Salvadoran settlers even more, in some cases reportedly throwing them off their land and burning down their homes, and the immigrants began fleeing back to El Salvador. The final game in Mexico would decide who went to the World Cup. It was close, but El Salvador came out victorious, knocking Honduras out of the tournament. The atmosphere was riotous, literally, and back in Honduras, attacks on the Salvadoran immigrants further increased. This was too much for El Salvador.
Stop beating them with sticks. They'll make the bananas. Harvest the bananas, I mean.
Salvador to bear. With its people under attack and an unmanageable refugee crisis on its hands, El Salvador severed all diplomatic ties with Honduras and declared war.
Wow. So this really
The football war is also known as the 100
like
Hours
that.
War, because that's how long it lasted, making it one of the shortest wars in history.
Really?
El Salvador started by carrying out air raids on strategic locations within Honduras, including Toncontin International Airport, which prevented the Honduran Air Force from getting into the sky.
So we're talking like a legitimate war with like air raids and everything. Like, not like, oh, the Cold War where we just spied on each other and propaganda all over the place. This is like air raids and bombings and shooting and stuff. Jeez.
Then, with their superior army, they began an invasion along two major roads, complete with light tanks and infantry. Their advance was rapid, and they were quickly approaching the Honduran capital.
Wow.
Then the Organization of American States met in a bit of a panic and unanimously agreed that war between El Salvador and Honduras was a bad thing and probably shouldn't continue.
Yeah.
So they went to El Salvador and said, "Can you please stop invading?" And El Salvador declared, "Not until they stop being jerks," and so the war went on.
Makes sense?
The Honduran Air Force finally got into the sky, and with aid from neighboring Nicaragua, they successfully carried out air raids on Salvadoran air bases and oil facilities, crippling.
Please tell me that this war was decided by a soccer game hosted in Mexico. That's just the perfect end to this. Please tell me.
The Salvadoran supply line and stopping their advance dead. Caught in a bit of a stalemate, the situation was no longer advantageous to El Salvador, so when the Organization of American States once again asked them to stop and agreed to ensure the safety of the Salvadoran immigrants, El Salvador relented, and a ceasefire was organized on the 18th of July. Then the OAS said, "Can you now please withdraw your troops from Honduras? No, please, no, please, no, please, no. Do it or we'll sanction you." You know what? Just for you, I'll do it. So
Not
El Salvador pulled its
sanctions!
troops out of Honduras on the 2nd of August, and with casualties in the thousands, the war was over.
Wait, whoa. 6,000 killed. 15,000 injured. Over football. What?
The economies of both nations were damaged by the war, and El Salvador didn't have the capability to take care of all the returning immigrants, a crisis that eventually helped cause a civil war. The war left behind land and border disputes, some of which are still a cause of tension to this day. El Salvador went on to play in the World Cup, but lost every match they played and didn't make it past the group stage. So in the end, nobody achieved anything, and there were no winners. Except for this guy.
We did get our bananas. We did get our bananas. We always get our bananas. Oh God, this was fun. Is this real? Is it? Wow. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you have yourself a wonderful day.